In the quiet places where no one applauded you, God saw the tremble of your faith and smiled over it. He did not need your noise to understand your surrender, and he did not need your explanation to recognize your endurance. There were moments when you stood in front of ordinary tasks with an exhausted heart, and still you chose not to let bitterness name you. That choice was not small, and heaven did not treat it as small. It was a hidden offering, a private altar, a yes spoken under your breath when nobody else was listening. Some of your strongest obedience happened where no witness could praise it, no crowd could confirm it, and no hand could reward it. Yet the silence around you was never the same as absence. It was the kind of silence that watches. It was the kind of silence that remembers. And because God sees differently than people do, what looked like delay was often protection, and what felt like invisibility was often intimacy. You may have thought your faith needed to be louder to matter, but the Lord has always known the language of the unseen. He understands the prayer that never becomes a sentence. He honors the trust that survives confusion. He receives the heart that keeps showing up when the body is tired and the mind is not certain. He sees what your hands cannot prove. He sees what your lips could not fully explain, and in that sight there is a smile that does not mock you, but confirms you. Think of a window lit after midnight while the street outside is still dark, and a single lamp is standing beside a chair that has been used for praying more than for resting. Think of a kitchen table with a cold cup of tea, a phone lying face down, and your shoulders carrying the weight of a day that nobody knew had broken you in small places. In that room, your faith may have looked like one more quiet breath, one more refusal to give up, one more steadying of the soul when everything inside you wanted to collapse. God saw that room. He saw the small movements that nobody called holy, like the hand that did not slam the door, the eyes that did not harden, and the mouth that did not curse the season. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. He saw the faithful restraint. He saw the tears you wiped away before they could become a performance. He saw the silence you chose because you were not trying to impress anyone, only survive with your trust intact. That is why the silence was never wasted. It was not empty air. It was a place where your trust was being held. It was not a forgotten corridor. It was a hidden hallway where heaven passed by and recognized you. You have been living in a story where the loud parts did not tell the truth about you. The truth was in the hidden parts. The truth was in the waiting. The truth was in the fact that even after disappointment, you still turned your face toward God. And that is the kind of faith that is noticed first by the one who matters most. There is a reason your soul has felt watched in the gentlest way, as though a hand you cannot see has been resting over the fragile parts of your life. You were never as alone as the silence made you feel. The Lord has ways of seeing that do not depend on being seen by others. He notices the decision to keep praying when your emotions have gone thin. He notices the obedience that looks unimpressive from the outside, but is costly in the inside places where no one measures. That is why your present struggle cannot be read only by what is visible, The hidden faith is often the deepest faith. The smallest yes can carry the weight of a whole future. And if you have been wondering whether your quiet endurance has mattered, the answer is yes. It has mattered more than you know. Just as a seed works underground before a stem ever appears, your unseen trust has been working in places you cannot inspect. The roots do not make a sound, but they are not idle. The roots are building the life that the surface will later reveal. So do not despise the silent season. Do not call it wasted, because it is not dramatic. Heaven does not measure your life only by visible results. It measures by faithfulness, by surrender, by the private turning of the heart toward God, when no one else could have compelled it. That is where your story is being held together. You may have carried a fear that if your faith was not loud enough, it might not count. Yet the Lord does not grade your devotion by volume. He sees what is sincere, and sincerity is heavier in heaven than performance. When you whispered, when you waited, when you stood still because you had no other honest choice, that was not spiritual weakness. It was a true offering, and the smile of God over that offering is not theoretical. It is the quiet approval that steadies the soul before the breakthrough ever arrives. There are days when you needed a sign, but what you were given was a deepening. There are nights when you wanted an answer, but what you received was endurance. There are moments when silence felt like distance, though it was actually the place where your spirit learned to stay awake. The Lord is not offended by your questions, but He is also not confused by your trembling trust. He knows the difference between rebellion and honest weakness. He knows the difference between abandonment and a hidden season of preparation. He knows how to smile at faith that has not yet become polished. He knows how to honor trust that still has rough edges. That is why your silence before Him was never an empty room. It was a meeting place. It was the private ground where your soul leaned toward God without needing a stage. And when God smiled, He was not celebrating your ability to impress Him. He was celebrating the fact that your heart kept returning. If the last few lines have landed in you, and if some part of you feels recognized in that hidden room, write 888 in the comments and then come back to me. Let that be your quiet agreement, not as a formula, but as a sign that something in you heard the whisper and answered it. The number itself is simple, but the moment matters because agreement often begins where pride stops speaking. What you type is not magic, and it does not need to be. It is a small outward mark of an inward yes. So type 888 and return to this place with the same silence that brought you here. There is no need to force anything louder than that. The Lord knows how to read a sincere hand. He knows how to receive a brief confirmation from a tired heart, and He knows how to keep building on a response that came from within. After this small sign, the path does not become noisier, it becomes clearer. The silence begins to gather meaning instead of confusion. The hidden place starts to feel less like a waiting room and more like a sanctuary. Keep coming with me, because what God is showing you now will not stop at recognition. It will move into reassurance, then into strengthening, then into the return of your confidence. When a seed is buried, the earth does not announce what it is doing, and yet the work inside the dark continues without permission from the surface. Your faith has been like that seed more than once. It sat beneath disappointment, beneath unanswered questions, beneath the ordinary demands of a day that kept asking for strength you did not feel. Still, something in you kept reaching upward, even before there was proof above ground. That reaching was not wasted. It was the beginning of a life the eye could not yet verify. God saw that hidden upward movement and smiled because He knew it was real. He knew the difference between a ritual and a living trust. He knew the difference between motion and surrender. He knew the difference between words learned from habit and words rising from dependency. And when He looks upon your faith now, He is not looking for perfection. He is looking for that living movement again, the tiny but true turning toward him that keeps the root from dying. The silence around you was never meant to erase you. It was meant to shelter what was still forming. Sometimes what feels like being buried is only being protected from premature exposure. Sometimes what feels like delay is the soil doing what light could not yet do. And in that hidden work, your heart has been learning the shape of trust that does not collapse when applause is absent. That shape is precious. That shape is remembered. That shape is being strengthened right now. There are certain kinds of waiting that make the room feel smaller, yet the soul grows larger inside them. You have known that strange enlargement, where disappointment should have crushed you, but instead it taught your spirit to look deeper. A chair by the window, a muted screen, the sound of a clock that kept moving without asking your permission, all of it can become part of that lesson. The lesson is not that pain is good, but that faith can survive pain without becoming fake. You did not need to pretend to be strong in order to be held by God. You only needed to remain open, however trembling that openness was. The Lord saw the way your silence carried both ache and trust. He saw the way you kept returning to Him without a speech prepared in advance. He saw the way your insides did not always match your posture, and He did not reject you for that. Instead, He smiled because the sincerity of your trust was still there. That sincerity is what keeps a life from becoming hollow. It is what keeps a prayer from becoming a slogan. It is what keeps the heart from turning into stone. So even now, if you feel unfinished, that does not disqualify you. It may be exactly the place where God is still working most tenderly. The hidden root does not apologize for being hidden. It is simply becoming what it was meant to become. And your faith too is becoming, even when you cannot yet show the fruit. You may have spent a long time trying to explain what your silence means, as though anyone else needed to understand it before God could bless it. But some things are not defended by explanation. They are defended by endurance. The way you kept showing up after the disappointment, the way you kept your integrity when compromise would have been easier, the way you kept your prayer simple when your emotions were tangled, all of that was visible in heaven. There is a profound mercy in that truth. It means your life was never reduced to what people could interpret from a distance. The Lord has been reading the deeper story. He saw the tears that did not become words. He saw the questions that stayed respectful even when they were heavy. He saw the loyalty hidden beneath your tiredness. That loyalty mattered. It still matters. And because it matters, your silence is not being discarded. It is being interpreted by grace. There is a smile over the faith that stayed alive in a place where nobody could congratulate it. There is a smile over the prayer that remained private because it was too vulnerable to be performed. There is a smile over the heart that continued to believe without insisting on immediate proof. That smile does not erase the pain, but it places the pain inside a larger story. And the larger story is this: what God sees in secret, He knows how to honor in time. Not always at the moment you expect, but never too late for His purpose. There is a point where the soul begins to realize that being unnoticed by people is not the same thing as being overlooked by God. That realization is slow, and it often comes after many nights of carrying what no one else could name. It may come while you are washing a dish, folding a shirt, or sitting in a parked car trying to gather yourself before you walk back into a room that expects more than you have. In those small places, the heart hears a different verdict. It hears, "You are not invisible here. You are known. You are not late in this hidden process. You are being held." And when that verdict begins to settle, a strange peace starts to replace the old strain. Not because everything is fixed, but because everything is seen. That is why the smile of God matters so much. It tells you that the silence did not win. It tells you that the waiting was not meaningless. It tells you that your faith, even in its most quiet form, was still faith. Some people need a loud miracle to believe that God is near. You have been learning something deeper, that His nearness can be felt even in the absence of spectacle. It can be felt in the patience that outlasts frustration. It can be felt in the restraint that keeps you from becoming someone you do not recognize. It can be felt in the calm that arrives without explanation. This is the kind of nearness that turns hidden endurance into holy ground. At times, you may have thought the silence meant your prayer bounced back unheard, but heaven was not empty. Heaven was attentive. The difference matters. An empty room cannot remember your tears, but a listening God can. And He has been listening to what you did not know how to say. There is a kind of faith that speaks in full sentences, and there is a kind of faith that only manages a breath. Both can be true prayer when they are given to Him. Your silence was not a void to be judged. It was a vessel to be received. That is why the hidden places of your life carry such weight now. They were never just pauses in the story. They were the places where your soul stopped performing and started belonging. Belonging is slower than performance, but it is more real. It does not ask for applause. It asks for trust. And trust, even when trembling, is enough for God to begin smiling over your life in a new way. The smile is not casual. It is covenantal. It says your faith has not been lost in the dark. It says your quiet yes still reaches Him. It says the seed is still alive under the soil. So keep your heart from accusing itself of being too small. The Lord is not only meeting your loud prayers. He is also honoring the soft ones, the private ones, the incomplete ones, the ones that arrived with no strength except surrender. Those prayers are part of your inheritance. If this recognition is settling into you, write the words "estu pronto" in the comments and then come back to me. Let that phrase be your middle confession, simple and living, a sign that you are willing to keep walking even before every answer has shown itself. This is not a demand to perform readiness. It is a gentle acknowledgement that your spirit can move before your circumstances do. Write "estu pronto" and return. There is a quiet strength in naming readiness after a long silence. It says the heart has not shut down. It says the hidden root has not gone dead. It says the soul is still willing to receive what God is bringing. And when you come back, come with the same honesty that carried you here. You do not need to pretend that everything is easy. You only need to remain open. That openness is enough to let the next part of the journey begin. The silence that once felt like delay will start to feel like preparation. The waiting will start to reveal its workmanship. The unseen will begin to press gently toward visibility, and you will recognize that what seemed like stillness was already movement in God. There are seasons when the heart becomes so familiar with hiddenness that it starts to fear visibility, as though being seen would somehow end the tenderness it learned in the dark. Yet God does not expose what He has been growing as a punishment. He reveals it with care. He knows the root must be ready before the branch can bear weather. He knows the difference between a life that is rushed into light and a life that is brought forward in wisdom. That is why your silence has not been overlooked. It has been prepared. And in the preparation, your faith has been strengthened in ways that applause could never have accomplished. No one can truly imitate the discipline of a heart that keeps trusting God without evidence. No one can fake the slow work of enduring love. Your soul has been learning that kind of love in the quiet. It has been learning to trust the one who sees beneath the surface. It has been learning to wait without becoming cynical. It has been learning to remain soft without becoming naive. That is a deep work. It is the work of roots going down before fruit comes up. And when the fruit begins to show, it will carry the flavor of the hidden season with it. The silence was not a subtraction from your life. It was a shaping. It was a deepening. It was the place where God smiled and said, "This one is still believing in me, even here." That word, "even here," is sacred. It means your faith survived the place that tried to make it smaller. The room where you once felt forgotten is becoming, little by little, a room where you are being reintroduced to yourself. That is one of the gentlest forms of restoration. You sit where you once sat with heaviness, and now something in you is less defensive. You reach for what used to feel unreachable, and you notice the hand is steadier. You hear the same clock, but it no longer sounds like accusation. It sounds like time under the care of God. This is what hidden faith can do after a long season. It can turn a hard room into a holy one without changing the furniture. It can make the same chair feel less like waiting and more like worship. It can make the same silence feel less like punishment and more like presence. That change is not a trick of mood. It is the quiet work of grace over a life that kept saying yes in the dark. God smiled because he saw not only your pain, but your cooperation with his care. You may not have felt heroic while this was happening. You may have felt ordinary, even weary, even forgettable. Yet heaven never misreads obedience as ordinariness. Heaven sees the spiritual weight of those uncelebrated choices. It sees the courage to stay kind. It sees the courage to remain truthful. It sees the courage to keep your heart turned toward God when the easier route would have been to go numb. That courage has been the architecture of your return. Sometimes the proof that God saw you is not a sudden thunderclap, but a soft rearranging of your inner world. A memory that once burned you begins to lose its grip. A fear that used to dominate the room starts to speak more quietly. A prayer you were afraid to repeat begins to feel safe again. These are not small signs. They are signs of a soul being returned to itself. And because God smiled over your hidden faith, he is also smiling over the fruit it will produce in time. He knows how to bring life from what the world thought was only waiting. He knows how to bring peace from what the body labeled strain. He knows how to bring steadiness from the kind of silence that once felt unbearable. This is why the hidden season deserves your reverence. It was not empty. It was formative. It was making a future version of you capable of carrying peace without depending on noise. That future is not abstract. It is already approaching your hands. You may feel it first as calm, then as clarity, then as a simple willingness to trust one more time. The important thing is that you keep letting God read you more deeply than your circumstances can. He is still smiling where your faith has been least public and most true. That smile is shaping the path ahead. If the quiet has taught you to listen differently, then let that listening continue without shame. You do not have to force your spirit into performance to prove that you understand. Sometimes understanding is just the steady willingness to remain before God. Sometimes it is the patience to let a season finish speaking, and sometimes it is the courage to admit that you are still becoming. That is enough. The hidden faith you have carried is not less holy because it was invisible. It may be more holy because it stayed sincere when nothing outward required it. The Lord sees the sincerity. He blesses the sincerity. He works through sincerity, and he smiles at the heart that has not learned to live from appearances. Your life is being reclaimed from the pressure to look significant before it is ready. That pressure is loosening now. You are allowed to be a seed before you are a tree. You are allowed to be underground before you are visible. You are allowed to be in process without apologizing for process. The silence around you has been teaching your soul this freedom. It says that what matters most is not how loudly you are noticed, but how faithfully you are held. And you are being held. You are being kept. You are being formed in a way that will make sense later, even if it feels tender now. There is a place in every quiet story where the listener begins to realize the silence was not empty, but full of attention. That place may have arrived for you through tears, through waiting, through a feeling of being unable to explain your own endurance. You stood there anyway. You remained available to God anyway. You did not always know what to say, but you did not leave. And that staying is one of the clearest signs of faith. It is a sign that the bond is real, even when language fails. It is a sign that the hidden room has become an altar. It is a sign that heaven has not been absent. This is the mystery that keeps unfolding in your favor. What no one applauded, God registered. What no one noticed, God received. What you thought might have been too quiet to matter was heard in the deepest place. When that truth enters the heart, the body begins to relax, the jaw loosens, the shoulders lower, the breath becomes less guarded. Even sorrow changes shape when it is no longer carrying the burden of being unseen. That is what the smile of God does. It dignifies the hidden life. It blesses the unadorned prayer. It places value on the faith that never asked for a stage. And because of that, you can stop arguing with the silence as though it were your enemy. It has been part of the environment where your trust was learning to stand. Deshu so like as a silent amen, if this recognition is touching the place where you waited longest. Let your like be the small agreement that says you are receiving what God has been saying in the quiet. There is no pressure in that gesture, only consent. It is a simple way of saying the hidden faith matters to you too, and if your heart is answering yes, then let the like carry that yes into the open. Come back after that small agreement, because the next movement is not about asking more from you, but about helping you carry what has already been awakened. The same God who smiled over your private trust is still strengthening what he saw. He is not disappointed that you needed reminding. He is kind in the remembering. The like is not the destination. It is a small witness. And witnesses matter when a soul has been used to solitude. So let the silent amen be named. Let it be simple. Let it be enough for this moment. Then return and stay with the way the silence is changing now. It is no longer only a sign of waiting. It is becoming a sign of communion. There are people who have been carrying the same quiet ache you carried, and even though you do not know their names, your obedience may become a doorway for them. This is why God often lets one hidden story become a lantern for another hidden heart. He does not waste your silence. He turns it into witness, and sometimes the person who needs that witness is not far away at all. It might be someone whose face came to mind just now, someone quietly tired, secretly seeking, carrying a posture nobody sees, or working hard while feeling unseen. If that face appeared in you, the simple act of sharing this with them may become a mercy. It does not need to be dramatic to matter. A small delivery can carry warmth into a room that has forgotten how to hope. So if someone came to mind, share this with them as a quiet kindness. Let it be a way of saying, you are not the only one whose faith has lived in silence. You are not the only one who has wondered whether God noticed the hidden yes. You are not the only one whose heart needed a smile from heaven. This share is not a campaign. It is care. It is the kind of kindness that crosses rooms gently, and after you do that, return to the stillness, because what is being built in you is bigger than a moment. It is a pattern of trust that reaches beyond you and touches another soul. The reason God smiles over hidden faith is that hidden faith tells the truth without trying to perform the truth. It does not dress itself in excess. It simply remains. That remaining has been the story of your life more than you may have realized. When others saw only a quiet person, heaven saw a continuing yes. When others might have assumed nothing was happening, God saw roots moving, trust deepening, and courage growing in the dark. This is why the story of your silence matters so much now. It is not a story of lack. It is a story of sacred development. And the more you understand that, the less you will need to fear the places where no one clapped. Those places were not wasted. They were incubators of spiritual strength. They were the hidden rooms where endurance became wisdom. They were the secret places where your heart learned that God is enough even before circumstances improve, that learning is not theoretical. It shapes how you breathe, how you wait, how you face tomorrow. It changes the tone of your prayer. It changes the way disappointment enters the room. It changes the way hope survives. The smile of God over your faith is therefore not merely comforting. It is formative. It is training your soul to read its own history through grace. And grace always tells the deeper truth. Write "Eu sou escolhido" in the comments, and then come back to me. Let those words be your declaration that the silence did not erase your identity, and that God's smile has confirmed what the hidden season was preserving. This is not a WBU. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.